There is a very deliberate reason why Donald Trump has covered up for the cabal of criminals around Jeffrey Epstein. And it's not just because he loves criminality or wealthy elites who abuse their power much like him. It's because the more names they redact, the fewer names there are to know. And with fewer names to know, the scandal seems smaller. That is what Donald Trump is after, minimizing the scale of this scandal in the minds of Americans. But that is very difficult to do when you start to put these pieces of the puzzle together. Donald Trump connected to Epstein, connected to associates, connected to Epstein, connected to Trump. And that is why Democrats went to the home of one of those associates today, Les Wexner, and exposed what Donald Trump has feared most, where the money is going, and what Wexner knows about Trump. Now, we are going to get into it all, including how this connects back to the fight that Pam Bondi had with Thomas Massie. But I want to start with Roan explaining why getting Wexner on the record is so important.
So the House Oversight Committee, members of it, are going to Ohio tomorrow to speak to the former CEO of Victoria's Secret. That's Les Wexner. His name had been in the files, was redacted in one piece, then unredacted last week after Thomas Massie had called it out. He had a long financial and personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He's denied wrongdoing. What information are you hoping to gain from him in this deposition?
What was his financial relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Point blank, did he ever abuse young girls? And did he know of other people who were abusing young girls? How many times did he visit the island? How did Epstein make his money? So he has a lot to answer for. But it's not just him. My view is every single person who has emails showing that they visited the island, especially after Epstein was a convicted pedophile, should be coming before the Congress and answering questions and be investigated. And the Justice Department should start a special prosecution investigatory committee.
I have said this again and again, and maybe it's just because I consider the media angle more than I guess others would, maybe from a legal background when it comes to what we're seeing from the Epstein files. But clearly, what Donald Trump is after in his messaging is an attempt to minimize for the DOJ to tell us that, well, there weren't any other co-conspirators. We don't really need to prosecute anyone, and nothing happened. A couple of people bumped into each other. That was it. There were some bad apples. Some people partied with Epstein, but that was it. That is language intentionally used to minimize and to numb us of the reality of what was actually happening. And that is exactly what Democrats are right now trying to do away with. And that's why Republicans wouldn't show up to this deposition today. And Democrats gave a lot of important answers that shed a lot of light. I want to go through a few of them. I think Jasmine Crockett maybe were the most important to start.
And I will tell you one thing that was remembered for sure was when asked about Donald Trump and Epstein and whether or not they had been in the same room and what that looked like. He didn't quite remember, but he imagined that, yes, that possibly happened because he did remember that Donald Trump also would like to show up to the Victoria's Secret runway shows. Now, that was a little odd to him, he said, because Donald Trump was not engaged in fashion whatsoever. But he does recall that. He also said something that I feel like we've heard over and over and over, which is that Epstein liked to drop people's names. So he'd imagine that that may have been one of the names that he dropped. Listen, I want the American people, but more specifically, I want the survivors and anyone who is struggling right now to know that we see you, we feel you, and we are fighting for you. We will not stop. If Mr. Wexner is honest about his intentions in helping us, then we're asking him, if he doesn't remember, then go ahead and turn over all of your financial records. Because we need to follow the money, because that is exactly what the survivors told us to do. And we know that the Department of Justice is either inadequate or just not interested in doing justice as it relates to this particular scenario. We in America deserve better. We are looking around the country and we're seeing CEOs that are having to leave their own companies. We're seeing people that are having to leave their board positions. We're seeing princes being dethroned. We're seeing all kinds of stuff everywhere except for right here at the highest levels of federal government. Whether we're talking about Donald Trump himself or whether we're talking about Secretary Lutnick, and the list goes on. We deserve better in this country, and we will get it.
Crockett is absolutely right that we need the financial records. We need to follow the money. And I think the kind of half answers, the kind of half admissions saying, yes, Donald Trump was around Epstein. Oh, I don't remember if they were exactly, maybe possibly in the room at the same time. We already know that they are, and they were. That is in the files, the fact that they were. So we don't even need an answer on that. That is completely confirmed, right? That is an irrefutable fact. But Wexner, admitting that Donald Trump was weirdly at these parties and he had these connections through modeling agencies that also brought Epstein girls that were trafficked, it's putting all of the pieces together. I also find it interesting that Wexner is not just going immediately all out for Trump. I think that maybe some are starting to sense that Trump can't completely protect them, and maybe that's why they're backing out of the maybe full-throated support that they would otherwise offer, saying, oh, well, Mr. Trump did nothing wrong. Like in the case of Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously trying to angle for her pardon right now. But I want to talk a little bit about what Thomas Massie had to say and why it is so important, at least to me, on the point that Jasmine Crockett made of following the money, that Wexner notably had his name redacted as someone who was a co-conspirator. This is obviously a reality that Republicans don't want to face down. It's why Congressman Dave Min had this to say about his colleagues who just didn't show up.
It is very frustrating the fact that there are no Republicans here today. I wish there were Republicans, because sex trafficking should not be a D versus R issue. It should be a bipartisan issue. Everybody should be invested in finding the truth right now. And the fact that we've had so little cooperation from the Republicans on the House Oversight Committee, that the DOJ has actively tried to obstruct this investigation, that is shameful, and it will go down as a permanent mark on the records of people like Pam Bondi and Donald Trump.
Republicans are hiding. Donald Trump is hiding. They do not want these questions. They do not want this attention. More than anything, they just don't want to have to answer, because they know all of their answers are in conflict. Donald Trump, in the same breath in which he'll say that the Epstein scandal, that the Epstein cabal, that the Epstein class doesn't exist, he'll also turn around and tell you that the Clintons were deeply involved, and we need to prosecute them, along with Michael Wolff. So, Republicans don't even know what answer to offer up. They just continue to hurt their own case. But the one thing that is clear is that the money is the through line. I think what Robert Garcia said made the perfect point that we need to jump off on.
The time belongs to the gentleman from
Kentucky. All right, I'm reclaiming my time.
Can I give my answer?
So
Yes.
I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman,
Because I
may I
have
give
another
my answer
question.
on that?
If
It's
Here's
a political
the question.
joke, and I need to give my answer
Yeah,
on that.
we'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his
Chairman,
next
it's
question.
my time.
Within 40
Chairman.
minutes, you asked me a question.
You can give
Within
me-
40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes
You
of me catching you red-handed.
Red-hand, there was one redaction out
Where
of
he's
over
listed as a
4,700,
co-conspirator.
Okay.
and we invited
You know what?
you
Switch-
in.
show the video.
This
Show
guy
the-
has Trump
Gentlemen.
derangement syndrome. He needs to
Show
get,
the
you're a
video.
failed politician.
Gentlemen,
You need to
time
get
I
on
want you to
things
watch
that
the
matter.
video.
Mr. Chairman, please restore his time and remind the witness of the rules
There
here.
is
Time.
no credible information.
So, the claim that Wexner is making and has made publicly is that he was a victim of Epstein, that he was not a co-conspirator, someone committing crimes alongside him, that Epstein stole money from him, that he was tricked. But what Robert Garcia is making clear, and what I'm sure as more documents are released, we will see is that what really is the case is that money was not stolen from Wexner without him knowing. I presume that money was taken to be used for Epstein's operation. And again, that is the fundamental narrative problem that Trump is dealing with right now, is that there is clearly so much money. This was $1 billion operation, a billion operation. There was so much money connected to so many people that they are trying to cover up those wire transfers, who was paid off to who was emailing about what payments. So they're trying to cover that up at the same time as they say, well, it was just Epstein and Maxwell. That was it. I don't really think you run a $1 billion operation with 2 people. I don't think that's how that works. Following the money is important, and the money I suspect might also bring us back to Mar-a-Lago, where Robert Garcia also said is a hub for Epstein. At the same time, Wexner was saying he was seeing Trump at his parties, and that's where that connection really starts to become clear, and it's probably why Thomas Massie was so intent on getting an answer from Pam Bondi that she just wouldn't give. And this clip right here